Sometimes things don't go the way you planned. Projects don't work out as expected. Getting to the reason behind why they didn't go to plan helps you make less mistakes in the future. Getting to the root cause of what went wrong takes a whole lot of time, a whole lot of questions, and a whole lot of whys. Hi, I'm Elliot, and I build stuff. This video introduces the 5 whys technique for root cause analysis. It's a pretty simple technique, and we'll work through an example here today, but I've used it in a number of different cases, say sprint retros at the end of projects, after a particularly bad week to work out what went wrong and get to the bottom of it and make the necessary changes to reduce those problems in the future. Now, while it's often used to diagnose problems, it's also a great tool to diagnose when things are going really well. If you had a project that went way smoother than usual, or you shipped something awesome, and you're not quite sure why this was different, this technique can help. Getting it right takes a bit of practice, but once you do, it'll help you and your team build more stuff with less headaches. Getting into the method is really simple. You just pick a problem that you've had recently or a question you want answered. Let's pick a common one. Let's say, why did we miss our launch deadline? Something that's, I'm sure, happened to all of us all the time, both in personal projects and at work. Now, on the surface, you and your team can probably pretty quickly come up with a list of reasons why you might have missed that deadline. It's easy to do. We can list stuff off. It was a bad week, competing pressures, we had a ton of bug fixes, all sorts of stuff like that. But this 5 whys technique, getting to the root cause, it's about going deeper, specifically 5 times deeper. We take the issue that we've had and we frame it into a why question. So in this case, why did we miss our deadline? And then the goal here is to come up with a whole bunch of reasons that may be avenues we can go down and start digging. You don't need 5 of them. You might get 1, you might get 10, as many as you can. Pretty much no filter at this point. Just list out everything you and your team can come up with at a surface level as to why the deadline was missed. Once you have that initial exhaustive list, pick 1 or 2 likely candidates. We're going to dive deeper into those. Let's say one of those examples in your case was we missed our deadline because we had to rework a bunch of code because after going to QA, there were a whole bunch of changes that we needed to make. We take that reason and we turn it into another why. So we say in this case, why did we have to rework so much code after sending it out to QA? Now we're at level 2, the second of the 5 whys. So repeat this process of coming up with reasons, turning them into why questions until you've hit about 5 levels deep. At this point, you're probably starting to uncover some root causes, some flaws in the process, or some real reasons why things might have gone wrong. In this example, it may have been something like, why did we miss our launch deadline? Because we had to rework code in QA. Why did we have to rework lots of code in QA? Because we missed a ton of simple bugs before sending to QA. Why did we miss bugs prior to sending code to QA? Because we didn't write any unit tests for the code we changed. Why did we skip writing unit tests for the code? Because we all assumed somebody else was writing the tests. Why did we assume somebody else was writing the tests? Because there was no subtask for it in Jira, and that means we all just sort of assumed it was part of everyone else's ticket. So what's the fix in this case? Easy. From now on, tickets get an explicit subtask for the unit tests so that everyone makes sure that the unit test for the bit of code they're working on gets done. There are a few things to watch out for here. Number 1, definitely do not blame people. This is not the kind of technique where you should be trying to find somebody to pin all your problems on. Sometimes, yes, a certain person or a group of people are the cause of the problem, but in a group workshop on trying to get to the root cause, it's not a good time to call that out, which means that, while 5 whys can solve a lot of problems, using it to solve people problems in a group setting is probably a really, really bad idea. Number 2, remember that none of these fixes are going to be magical. The further down you get towards the root cause, often the simpler the solution is. You're going to find 1 or 2 things to change in your process that are going to help, but it's not going to magically make all of your problems go away. You'll find better solutions than you did at the top level, which in this example's case might be allocate a couple of extra days to QA. But It's a continuous process. Number 3, you and your team are almost certainly going to start to get frustrated around about level 3. This process can feel super tedious at times, and often like you are talking to a toddler who asks why to literally everything you say. Push through it. Trust me, it's worth it. Once your team gets used to it, it's one of those things where it's a funny ritual, it feels a bit weird, but if your team's seeing the results from the output, it's going to be worth the effort. Finally, the 5 whys, going 5 levels deep, it's pretty arbitrary. Sometimes you end up finding a great solution at level 4. Sometimes you need more levels because the little bits that you pick apart were pretty shallow. 5 is a good enough rule of thumb, makes for a catchy name for a video, but adapt it as you need to. And with that, we're done. That was the 5 whys technique for root cause analysis. Hopefully that's enough information to help you run this with your team, dive in, get to the root cause of some of the issues you're having, and ultimately find a little bit more time in your day to go out there and build great stuff.